Hi everyone, today on Simply Maha we're going to be making Turkish style naan bread. I love this bread because it's almost like cake. It's soft, it has a hint of sweetness. You can see how pillowy and rich it is, and just the softest bread you'll ever eat. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start off by adding my wet ingredients to a bowl. I have 1 cup of hot milk, about half a cup of yogurt, along with half a cup of oil, and my sugar and yeast. Now all the measurements will be down in the description below. So I am going to activate my yeast in this mixture right here, and I do have my milk hotter than I usually would, and this is because the oil is not hot and also the yogurt is straight out of the fridge. So if my milk was just warm, it wouldn't be a hot enough environment for my yeast to activate. That's why I had my milk on more of a hotter temperature. You can just have it warm and activate your yeast in the milk and then add everything else. You can really do it both options, but this is just what I did here. Now I gave that a really good mix until everything is, mostly combined. And then I am just going to cover it with plastic wrap, put it in my oven with the oven turned off, of course, and let it proof for about 15 minutes. And this is what it's gonna look like after about 15 minutes. Now I have 3.5 cups of flour. You're gonna need from 3.5 cups to 4 cups. It really depends on how humid the room is, how hot your mixture is, what kind of flour you use. I'm starting off with 3.5 cups, and I am just mixing that in my wet mixture here, and you can see I'm just folding everything together. I am scraping my spatula along the sides of the bowl and incorporating everything in the middle. And I'm just going to keep adding my flour until I get a very soft dough. This should be sticky. At this point, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, the combination of the baking powder, yogurt, and oil is what's gonna give this a cakey texture. It's what's gonna make this bread super soft. Adding the rest of my flour here. Now I am kneading this by hand, so the rest of the flour I'm gonna put on my board as I knead it by hand. But if you are using the stand mixer, it's gonna go by a lot faster, but I decided to do it by hand. And you can see how I'm just folding the dough over itself, testing it out here, and you can see it's still sticking to my hand, so I know I'm going to need 4 cups. But you really want to add it slowly because it's easier to add flour than it is to add water. Now I'm just taking everything off my spatula and starting to knead it by hand. After kneading it in the bowl for about 3 minutes, I've dumped it on my countertop, and now I'm just kneading it with the rest of my flour. Now you're going to knead this for about 5 to 7 minutes, and keep in mind that it will be a sticky dough. If you have your spatula or a bench scraper to help you scrape it off your countertop, that would really help. Just don't add any more flour. You want it to be this sticky and tacky because that's what's going to make our dough super soft. And one technique you can use is just picking it up and throwing it on your countertop like that, so it can prevent it from sticking too much to your hand. And after about 8 minutes, I decided that was enough. Now to help me pick up the dough without it sticking too much, I've just covered my hands with oil, picked it up with my oiled hands, and I'm trying to form it into a ball, but I couldn't because I was way too mesmerized. I kept on playing with it. Trust me, if you're stressed, go make some bread because that is the most therapeutic thing you'll ever do. It's soft, it's supple. Now I'm just gonna put it in the oiled bowl. And you want to oil the surface of your dough as well, just so you don't have any skin forming. And then I'm just going to cover it, put it back in my oven. The oven is turned off, and I'm going to leave it there for about 1.5 hours. If you have time, leave it in for 2 hours. The longer it rests, the better. But I like max 2.5 hours. So just get that covered, put it in, and I will meet you right back. All right, here is our dough after it's proofed, and now you just want to take that and punch it. Get all your aggression out. Alright, now we're just gonna gather up all the dough and we are gonna divide it into 2 equal pieces. Now you're gonna get 2 fairly large sized breads. You can cut this into 4 and you'll get smaller sized ones, but it's up to you. I did 2. You can also double the recipe and make a bigger batch, but 2 was perfectly fine. Just cut it up like that and gather them into dough balls and put them in the oiled sheet that I have right here, and we want to let them rest for about 5 to 10 minutes before we roll them out. The key here is really after each time you work the dough, letting it rest so the gluten can relax, and when you roll it, it won't go back on you. Making it into a bowl right now and placing it on my sheet. For about 5 minutes, I'm taking one of them out, and make sure once you work with one, you keep the other one covered so it doesn't dry out. Now with my rolling pin, I'm just gonna roll it one side a couple times, turn it over, and do the same thing to keep a circular shape. And I like using my hands, so after I got the initial shape, I went in and started stretching it out with my hands. You want to keep a relatively circular shape. You can use your hands, you can use your rolling pin. Please excuse that charger that's hanging out from the corner of the screen. Okay, I'm sorry. Just keep your focus on the bread, and now I'm just gonna pick it up and put it on my sheet that I have oiled. You also want this to remain thick. As you can see, it's about 1/2 inch thick. This is meant to be like that, but of course it's all gonna be back to your preference. If you want it thinner, just make it thinner. Once I have my 2 pieces of bread, I'm just gonna oil the tips of my fingers, and I'm gonna start making sort of like a crust around the bread. So this is sort of like a Turkish focaccia, if you will, because we are, making little divots into the bread. So we're just gonna make a circle around, and then we're gonna go ahead and sort of make a checkered pattern in the middle. You don't really have to be perfect. As you can see, it will turn out beautifully at the end, no matter how you do it. So I did one lengthwise, and now going horizontally, making a checkered pattern. And you want to do that to your other bread as well. And what makes this bread really unique is that design that we're making on it. So after you shaped your bread, you want to cover it and you want to let it rest for about 1/2 an hour before we put our egg wash and our toppings on them. So cover it and let it rest for 30 minutes. Now after 30 minutes, you can see that they've risen beautifully. I'm just gonna go back and shape it again just to make these divots a bit deeper, and then I'm gonna brush it with some egg wash to give me that nice golden brown color. Some people put maybe like 1/4 of a teaspoon of instant coffee in their egg wash just to really give you that dark brown color. I personally don't think that it's necessary. I think that the egg wash is more than enough, but you can choose to do that. I'm just placing an even coating on my little doughs. Right now for my topping, I have about 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds and about 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. You can use black sesame seeds, you can use bagel seasoning, you can use just flaky salt, whatever you want. You can even put some cheese on this. I just kept it like that. And what I'm doing is I'm going around the border that we've creating. And then I'm just gonna put a pinch of our mixture onto each square that's in the center. And it's gonna be a very beautiful design. I have tried black sesame seeds, but I really like the texture that the chia seeds give me. Like I said, you can use any toppings you want. I admit I did go a bit overboard with my seeds, and that's nothing wrong is gonna happen. They're just gonna fall out when you take them out of the oven. So do any design that you want, and then we're gonna let them rest for an additional 15 minutes before baking. I know it's a lot of resting, but remember that the more it rests, the softer that it gets. Once they have rested, I'm gonna bake them in a 400-degree oven for 23 minutes. Once they come out, they're gonna be a beautiful golden brown, like you see over here, so soft, so tender, but do not cut in. You have to let these rest, and you have to cover them with a damp kitchen towel like you see me do here, because this is going to allow for the steam and the heat to redistribute and keep it soft. Okay, if you cut into it right away, it's going to be just like steak. When the juices run out, in bread the steam runs out and it's not going to be soft at all. After about 10 minutes, I took it out and I began cutting it. Look at just how soft and pliable it is. It's really like edible clouds, and you can see how much the seeds fell and how much they stuck to my hands because I put a lot, but that's okay. It was still super delicious. And the grand reveal. Look at how thick and luscious and chewy and moist that looks. It really does look like a cake more than it does a bread. And the yogurt and the oil give this such an incredible richness, and it stays soft till the next day. I mean, if you're gonna keep it till the next day, I mean, I don't know how you're not gonna finish this in one day. I cut these into quarters because I want to make them into sandwiches. And here's the texture. I really hope you guys enjoyed this bread recipe. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know down below what other bread recipes you guys would like to see, and I will see you next time on Simply Maha, where we are simple but never basic. Bye bye.